The single largest transit project in the history of Seattle just opened. But I'm already back in school, so we have to settle for the next best option. Indiana! I generally tried to avoid this place whenever possible, but when a state inexplicably has one of the quirkiest and greatest electrified rail systems in the country, sometimes you have to give in to temptation. This week, the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District, or NICTD's, South Shore Line got even wackier and cooler, because a new branch known as the Monon corridor opened, connecting the Chicago suburbs of Dyer, Munster, and Hammond. Let's go ride this thing and figure out what the heck is in the water in northwestern Indiana. As we blaze south through Chicago, what exactly is the Monon corridor? Well, it's a branch of the South Shore Line, an electric commuter train running from Millennium Station in downtown Chicago all the way to destinations such as Gary, the Indiana Dunes, and South Bend Airport. The Monon corridor is a new branch off of this line, which follows the pre-existing Monon Trail, a ped bike path which itself was named for the former Monon Railroad, which was named for the small town of Monon where its lines used to intersect on the way to Indianapolis. Trains today don't travel quite that far. Or very far at all, if we're being honest. The nearly 8-mile line has just 3 stations, and passengers need not fear as they will never make it more than a half-mile from the border with Illinois, should a sudden escape become necessary. We're going to explore the new stations on the extension starting with Munster Dyer Main Street, the southern terminus of the expansion. This station is surrounded primarily by parking, with scattered suburban homes also nearby. With Lansing Municipal Airport just on the other side of the Illinois border, small aircraft can be seen landing in the distance. The station itself has a large waiting room with ticket machines, seating, restrooms, and next train arrival screens. Otherwise, the platform is a fairly basic design. To get to the parking lot located across the tracks, passengers use this tunnel, accessible through stairs and a ramp. The other side of the tunnel has a little headhouse as well. A pre-COVID study by the South Shore Line estimated about 1,300 daily riders at this station in the opening year, of which the vast majority would use the park and ride, with about 200 people being dropped off and about 140 people walking to the station. COVID has likely tossed things up, but we'll have to wait and see how ridership ultimately compares. For now, the lot seems decently busy, and there were maybe a couple dozen people on our train who got off here. Adjacent to the Monon corridor tracks is CSX's Monon subdivision, which carries Amtrak's Cardinal route. The Cardinal already serves a station in Dyer, which is a half-mile to the south of Munster Dyer Main Street. There's no connection between the two lines, probably because the Cardinal runs a measly 3 times per week, and siting the Monon station further north made it possible to build the huge parking lot. Future phases of the Monon corridor could see an extension to the towns of St. John and Lowell, more than tripling its length. Such an extension would continue to parallel the Cardinal. Traveling north out of Dyer, tracks rise onto an elevated guideway, climbing over an intersecting rail line. The tracks settle back down to ground level and enter a residential area as we approach our next station, Munster Ridge Road. Ridge Road itself is a pretty large traffic sewer, which doesn't feel like the most appealing place to walk, but there's a good assortment of strip mall-y businesses nearby. Also a little plaza here that might be nicer when the fountain's actually working. The station itself has some parking, albeit considerably less than at Dyer. There's some bike racks and benches here too, with ramps leading to either end of the short platform. At platform level is a much smaller waiting room, with ticket machines, seating, and heat lamps. Munster Ridge Road has a paltry 230 projected riders, though its position along Munster's commercial core means half of them will walk to the station. The station's saving grace is that it has the highest development potential of the bunch, and a study by Northern Indiana's Transit Development District envisions a mixed-use urban center here in the future. I won't hold my breath, but it'd be great to see this become a reality. I brought my bike along for this journey, and I'm taking the Monon Trail instead of the train to reach our third and final station. The trail closely parallels the rail line for most of its length, and it's only a little over a mile to the last of the 3 new stations. After watching this out-of-service train fly past, we finally reach South Hammond. This station is expected to have 1,000 daily boardings, with 2/3 using the long park and ride, and over 250 people walking to the station, making South Hammond the most pedestrian accessible of the 3. The higher ridership compared to nearby Ridge Road is likely attributable to the station intercepting traffic along I-94, which is probably also why the parking lot here is much larger than at Ridge Road. There's not much ridership here yet, and the station plaza feels pretty empty. The station is directly adjacent to the Monon Trail in a largely residential area. Next train arrival screens show the almost hourly peak schedule, and the waiting room is pretty much identical to the one at Ridge Road. Like the other 2 stations, South Hammond is single track with a single platform. Almost the entire Monon corridor is single tracked, with only sparing passing tracks like this one just on the other side of 173rd Street. Biking back to Hammond Gateway, we continue to follow the rail line. Between the wind and the leaves, spring in Indiana really does a great job of feeling like fall. Only a couple miles further and we find ourselves in downtown Hammond. An infill station is planned to be sited along the elevated guideway here at Russell Street, with preparatory work already having been done. The station will be part of Hammond's downtown revitalization plan, and let's just say, I'm glad downtown Hammond has a revitalization plan. To its credit, there are good bones, just not a whole lot of street life right now. Train service will no doubt help catalyze the area's growth. As great as the Monon corridor and the South Shore line as a whole are, we have to talk about their biggest flaw, the schedule. Unlike most American commuter rail systems, the problem here isn't strictly that the schedule is too commute-oriented, it's more so just that it kind of makes no sense at all. At most times of day, the new Monon corridor operates like a shuttle, connecting to the newly dubbed Lakeshore Corridor trains at the Hammond Gateway Station, which we reviewed a 1.5 years ago. While we're back, here's a view of the new yard they added. The elevator also seemed quite satisfactory. There's not much near the station yet, but development plans call for a mixed-use neighborhood to be sited here. For connecting passengers arriving at this station, a 5 or 10 minute transfer probably feels sufficient. That way, people with mobility challenges have time to descend the massive ramp constructed between the 2 platforms, or to take the elevator. Friendly reminder that this whole station was designed and built clean sheet with these exact connections in mind, and this is what they came up with. Regardless, let's now look at the actual schedule, shall we? Most trains have about a 15-minute transfer window. Not great, not terrible. Some are longer. There's this train, which has a 48-minute wait. Dear God, I wouldn't want to be one of the poor souls stuck at Hammond Gateway for 48 minutes. And that assumes the train from Michigan City is actually on time. But it gets worse, which brings me to why I'm on my bike. In addition to the shuttle services, there are 5 daily rush hour trips and 1 reverse commute trip during the morning and evening peaks, which run directly to or from downtown Chicago. For some reason, these trains don't stop at Hammond. Our current leading theory is that since the transfer platform doesn't have a number, inbound passengers would get confused about where to catch their train. But fine, we can move past that. I took the first direct outbound train of the evening rush hour, departing Millennium at 3:30 and rolling into Dyer just 52 minutes later. At 4:42, this train returns as the only direct inbound train of the evening rush. But the next inbound train isn't until 7:25, more than 2.5 hours later. Worst of all, it doesn't connect with anything in Hammond. The train arrives 15 minutes too late to offer a transfer to the previous Lakeshore Corridor train. If you didn't consult a schedule before hopping aboard, you could be stuck at Hammond for 1 hour and 45 minutes until the next train to Chicago. There are a few other inbound shuttles which don't connect to anything, and it's pretty clear they only exist to reposition trains for outbound connecting passengers. And look, I get it. Scheduling trains is probably really hard. South Shore has an aging fleet of trains, and speed, frequency, and reliability can sometimes be competing priorities. But these transfers are absolutely essential to making the Monon corridor a viable transit line. When I got off the train at Ridge Road, a disgruntled passenger was calling a ride because understandably he wasn't willing to wait nearly 3 hours for the next train to Hammond. Despite the schedule, this project is a major step in the right direction. With the Monon corridor done, what's next for the South Shore line? Well, surprisingly, more expansions are being studied. In addition to the aforementioned extension of the Monon corridor to St. John and potentially Lowell, branches to Crown Point and Valparaiso are in the Development District's strategic plan. Why invest in new rail lines when virtually no other suburban region in the country is doing this? Well, surprisingly, the Northwestern Indiana Transit Development District seems to have a strong grasp on the idea that transportation investments and land use decisions go hand in hand. As an area defined by the collapse of cities like Gary looks to reinvent itself through the addition of urban infill, electrified rail transit is understood to be a central component of that vision. And it better be if the friggin' bears are moving out here.
If you go